can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, I'm going to be talking about Thundercats. With full spoilers, Thundercats number 7, 8, and 9, written by Declan Shalvey, with art by Drew Moss, colors by Martina Pignadoli, and letters by Jeff Eckelberry. It's been a while since I've talked about Thundercats. That's largely because I've been incredibly busy. I've talked about it a little bit over on the shorts side of things. I'm gonna get back to doing some of those. I usually, if there's a comic that comes out that I really dig, I'll usually make like a little short about it because there's not really a whole heap of a lot to say. And that's kind of how it's been lately with a lot of comics, and it's kind of my way of talking about them without really making a whole video a big to-do. It's a lot less of a production to do the shorts. But this time I actually want to talk about some things that are going on right here, because we actually have some really interesting stuff that's popping up with Thundercats. Well, yes, we do have the upcoming Thundercats Apex. That one shot will not be dropping until December 4th, but we have already seen the character Apex as of Thundercats number 8. And while we see him here, we'll talk, like I said, we're going to talk about that here in just a moment, but we also know that there's a lot more stuff that's on the horizon for the Thundercats. So figure here's a good time to get back into it, talk about it a little bit. But before we do, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button because it really helps the channel out. Also, especially with videos like these that don't particularly do terribly well for me, it just really helps YouTube push the video out more the more people like it. So I really appreciate it if you hook a brother up. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel and you're digging the content, especially if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that way you don't miss anything. So what's been going on with Thundercats lately? We know that in the wake of the Thundercats encountering Mum-Ra and the destruction of the Sword of Omens and the whole betrayal of Calica and all that other good stuff, we know that not only have things gotten more rough for the Thundercats, especially now that they have discovered the Vulture Men also exist on Third Earth. We learn a lot more about why all of the mutants are on Third Earth, how they followed them from the destruction of Thundera, considering that technically none of these people should be here. Well, we learn that one of the main reasons why, and this actually comes up more in Thundercats number 8, is that when Tigra is trying to create the Cat's Lair, yes, the iconic Thundercats Lair, the toy that all of us probably wanted to have or wished that we had. I didn't get to have it when I was a kid, really. I had the Thunder Tank, but not the Cat's Lair. I was not that cool. But the Cat's Lair it's not fully built. It's in the early stages of being developed, and while all that is going on, Tigra, as he's trying to basically move the door that leads to the treasures of Thundera, he gets drug into it and winds up finding himself thrown backward in time, or at least to the time shortly before the Thundercats would be leaving Thundera, before Thundera's fall, and he ends up running into Lionel's father, Claudius, and in doing so, he runs into another character, and that's Apex. We don't know who Apex is, we don't know what Apex is. All we know is that he seems to maybe potentially be a Thundercat, or at the very least a Thunderan. And I know some people would be like, well, wait, why'd you make a difference between Thunderan and Thundercat? Thundercat is technically a title. It's a symbol of being royalty. A Thunderan is just a Thunderan. That's why I say that. But he seems to have an eye of Thundera on his person. He also seems to have the patented gauntlet that Lion-O tends to wear when he wields the Sword of Omens. So it becomes this situation where it makes you wonder who this is. They are being obscured, and I'm pretty sure there's a very good reason for why we never see this character's face. While it is stated that Apex is a new character, part of me wonders if this might be somebody else entirely, maybe even somebody familiar. I will say, while I have thoroughly enjoyed the Thundercats Dynamite series, one thing I can definitely say is that while yes, there have been instances where it has been stated that this is going to be more of a retelling and reimagining of the original Thundercats series from the 1980s. There have been some isms that have popped up that are from that 2011 Thundercats series, even if it was not on purpose. And it just, once again, just goes to show that, well, that 2011 Thundercats series was onto something. And I hate that that show never got the love that it deserved at the time that it was on. But like, looking at Calica, while I enjoy the character of Calica, it is difficult to not see the similarities between herself and the Thundercats 2011 version of Pumira. And while we never got that continuation, so Pumira never got to reveal that maybe she wasn't actually whole ass evil, maybe she was just working an angle, we never actually get to see all that play out. And here we might actually get an opportunity to see that with Calica. They do also look similar in a lot of respects as well, but that's another story altogether. The point is that with Thundercats, what I really enjoyed was that they did this thing where Claudius was revealed to have been in on some kind of a secret plot that removed the mutants from the table on Thundera. You see, the mutants that we have seen like Slithe and Monkeyin and Vulture Man, all of these characters are of the belief that the Thundercats destroyed their people on Thundera, but that's actually not the case. While it was technically supposed to be the case, Claudius did not want to do it. And it's one of those moments where they kind of play with the idea that, oh wait, was Claudius on that Fox News bullshit? Is this one of those situations where the good guy, the guy who you are supposed to believe was this regal and royal and very like above board leader that Lion-O looked up to, not just because he was his father, but because he was the paragon of the Lord of the Thundercats? No, they don't do that. As a matter of fact, Claudius reveals that instead of exterminating them or executing them, they only allowed the mutants to think that their people were destroyed, which, to be fair, also kind of messed up. But what he did was he actually showed mercy, and he sent those mutants to Third Earth. This is why, when we get to Thundercats #1, why characters like Slithe, Vulture Man, and Monkeyin are already there, and why the mutants already seem to be in full force. But it does make things weird considering that Claudius also knew that Lion-O was going to have to travel to Third Earth in the events that Thundera was destroyed. So it's almost like he set Lion-O up for failure. It's one of those weird things, but it also, you can tell that maybe Claudius was hoping for the best of situations, which is why I don't think it's as bad of a thing. But it is what it is. But at the end of the day, while all that was going on, Tiger also, as I said earlier, encountered Apex, and we learn a few interesting things about Apex just by virtue of the bookending issues of 7 and 9. In Thundercats #9, we see that Apex looms large over the issue, despite the fact that he's not really in it very much. But it's more something he said, because we know that the mutants are on the way. We know that they're going to attack, and they're going to attack in force. But Slithe shows up with something that looks very familiar, something we saw him use in the first issue to destroy the Sword of Omens. And when we saw this initially, Panthro said he recognized the weapon that was in Slithe's hands, even though technically the weapon seemed largely innocuous and not really different from anything we had seen Slithe use, even in the original animated series. However, there's a reason why Panthro recognized the weapon, and it's because it is one of the most legendary and iconic weapons in the Thundercats canon other than the Sword of Omens. And that is the Sword of Plunder, a very powerful blade that was largely responsible for the destruction of Thundera, and apparently what Slithe has had in his hands this whole time is exactly that. The weapon, while technically at first it doesn't look like the Sword of Plunder as we traditionally know it, it morphs into the Sword of Plunder in Slithe's hands, and it makes it even that much more clear the reason why it was able to destroy the Sword of Omens in the first issue. While yes, the Sword of Omens, while it is a very powerful weapon, it is not indestructible. It would not be out of the spectrum of possibility for a normal weapon to destroy it. However, the fact that this is not a normal weapon lends even more credence to why it was capable of destroying it so utterly. So there is that. That said, there's lots of other really cool things that pop up in these issues. In 7, which I didn't really talk about very much, it's largely just because that is more of a Wily Cat, Wily Kit issue, and there's not really a whole heap of a lot that happens in it outside of them just disobeying Lion-O's orders, which I love that it's from their perspective. So when Lion-O gets angry with them, he looks more menacing because to them, he is an adult now. Therefore, he's a big, scary person to them all of a sudden. But at the end of the day, I think what is, really needs to be addressed, and this is, really that they gain their powers. Like each of the Thundercats have their own special abilities. Chitara, has her superhuman speed as well as her ability to see into the future. We know that Tigra has the ability to turn invisible and all that other sort of stuff. Well, Wily Cat and Wily Kit, they have special abilities as well, and they have a telepathic link, and they also draw on each other's power in this. And so we get to see a little bit of that, but basically that issue, there's really not a whole heap of a lot going on outside of their discovery of Mum-Ra. They actually stumble upon his lair after goofing around when Lion-O told them not to. They end up stumbling into Mum-Ra's pyramid. That's really the major thing going on there. What it really all comes down to is the revelation of the Sword of Plunder, and I'm curious to see exactly what's going to happen with it. I really hope that, especially with everything that happens towards the end of this issue and how it is revealed just how powerful the Sword of Plunder is, even when it is not being wielded by someone, it being able to destroy things as large. I mean, it already destroyed Thundera itself, but also being able to destroy the cat's lair, an unfinished cat's lair, mind you. But yeah, the sword is powerful, and I like the fact that Declan is taking these steps with the Thundercats and the way that this is all playing out, and even how even though technically the Chitara series is not as directly connected to this, even there's some little musings and things with Chitara in her own series versus what's going on here. There's a nice little crosstalk between them just in terms of what's being addressed. And I like the fact that, while we kind of already knew this, I appreciate the fact that Panthro and Lion-O are back to, having that familial relationship that I felt it was uncomfortable to watch. It was a necessary thing to see happen in the early issues, but I appreciate that they have gotten past it and that the Thundercats are acting more, as you would expect, people being in a situation where they're stranded somewhere, tension's high, tempers are high. Yes, people are going to act out against one another. You also have a leader who was originally just a little boy and is now a grown-ass man out of nowhere. He has the body of a grown man, but the mind of a boy. Yeah, you would imagine things would go off the rails, especially when some little young tender comes running along, and I'm talking about Calica, and his nose is wide open. He's like, yeah, he's smelling it. He's smelling himself, and he's smelling her too. But you'd imagine these things would happen. That said, yeah, I think there's a lot of really good stuff going on here. I'm really excited to see what Ed Brisson's going to do with the Apex one-shot. I'm actually going to be talking to him very, very soon. I believe at the time of this recording, I'll be talking to him next week, I believe, or the week after, somewhere along in there. Either way, I'll be talking with him about that and learning a little bit more. And we also know we got the Silverhawks on the way, which I am of the belief, I believe I heard this correctly, I believe they are going to actually have the Silverhawks exist in the same universe with the Thundercats. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I read it somewhere, so it was on the internet. Has to be true, right? Nah, it's probably not. Who knows? But I do hope that they do something with this. It gives me a lot of hope for a lot of other franchises, that were kind of left out in the cold after, Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s and whatnot. I do hope we get, something a little bit closer, to that. Hey, just going to put this out here. Can somebody hook a brother up with some Marshall Bravestar? Y'all got me. Y'all got my boy Hot Wing back in the mix, but can I get Marshall Bravestar and 3030 out here? That would be nice. Or you know what? Even though technically I'm not the hugest fan of Copaganda, I would not be upset if the cops, cops, y'all know what I'm talking about.
It's crime fighting time.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah. if they do that, if somebody brings that back, I'm in. All in.